Hey, welcome to this episode of Black Beat Podcast, where we're unapologetic about the information and content that we bring to our community. Hey, my name is John Washington, and I'm your host today. And today I got a few guests with me. And today I got a special guest here on Black Beat, Evan Goss-Lemelle, the executive director of the Black American Chamber of Commerce. And I also have my co-host, Alex, here handling his side of the deal. And we're going to move into some pretty exciting conversation today about a few things. But first of all, I'd like to introduce my guest joining us today. How you doing, Gus? What's going on, buddy?
Not too bad, not too bad. Same as always, every day. Black American Chamber of Commerce, we're doing stuff. Everything that we can.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about what you're doing over there, man.
Oh, man. We've got every initiative possible going on right now. Right now, we've got the Impact Now grant that we're working on, get some money out in the community, $500,000 that we're distributing directly to businesses in partnership with the Philippine American Chamber.
Oh, really? How long y'all had that money?
Oh, man. We just got it the start of this year. Yeah.
Oh, really?
That was results of the EEIP program. The EEIP program, the what are we calling it? The Economic Equity Impact Program that I was partly responsible for helping to create. I was part of the initiative to get the bill passed so that funding can go to those businesses. But
so what's the process, man, to get at that money?
Oh, it's just as simple as fill out an application.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I'll forward you over the link. I believe you actually had distributed it to your mailing list and everything. But
really?
I'll make sure that we got that out for everybody.
Did we get that out?
Yeah, we got it out.
Yeah, well, right on, man. So what is it about? All you got to do is fill out an application. They're gonna give you how much money?
Fill out an application, $2,500 to $25,000. Depends on what the needs are.
What the needs are. So you got to talk about the needs, or is it like a RFP?
So we have the first process, which is just that initial application. So you go through. There are various different categories that funding goes towards. Basically, it'll cover every aspect of business operations. So if your business exists and all the things that you actually need to do, we were doing everything that we can to jump over every hurdle so that we made it as accessible as possible. Everything from like events to I need a POS system for my shop, or I'm looking to expand. I'm trying to acquire some property, things like that.
How quick a turnaround on these things are at this point?
Shockingly fast.
Really?
So what we are doing right now, you have depending on where you are in your business, how sound things are. There's sometimes where some businesses may need a little bit of technical assistance to get them over the mark where they can receive the funds and effectively use it. And then there are some who are you're just sound. If you're just sound, then the following month after the application, we go through, we see, oh, you're good to go. Well, here you go. Just cut the check. Here you go.
Y'all hear that out there?
Yep.
There's some opportunity available for you small businesses that are out there, small black businesses that are going on out there.
Tired of high gas prices? Save money on your transportation costs with TriMet's reduced fare transit card. If you meet income requirements, you can get your first month free while you enjoy unlimited rides on buses and trains anywhere TriMet goes. That's 1 month free, a $28 value when you sign up today for TriMet's reduced fare card. We'll help you travel smarter and make your money go further no matter what the price is at the pump. Visit TriMet.org/save to learn more and apply today. That's TriMet.org/save. TriMet. How life moves.
Let's talk a little bit about the economic landscape.
Yep.
What's your overlook? I mean, your view on the economic landscape of black businesses in Portland these days, man?
It's mountainous,
to say the least. Issues are issues.
Yeah. There's right now. There's a lot happening, especially with our businesses. There's a lot of new barriers that are coming into play, i.e. affirmative action. That's that looming shadow that's looking over us all right now. I know politics are a little bit more, politics around that time were definitely a little bit more reach across the aisle on some things, less hyper pendulous as it is right now. But it was, he was an appointee that was from the get-go. It kind of felt like he was, I don't know if he hated himself or something,
Man,
or what,
but I mean, he hanging out with them rich boys, so I
Yeah.
guess they influencing him sooner, or maybe present, more sooner than later, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So when we're looking at the landscape in reference to some of those, in relationship to some of those events that have happened around affirmative action and Roe versus Wade, all these types of rulings, I understand that there was a new ruling that came out last night.
Yeah, Texas. The ruling in Texas for our minority business development centers, minority business development agency down in Texas. Now, that ruling was, it's in Texas, but it creates a precedent, and when there's a precedent, that means there's a problem. So they opened up those agencies to allow for non-minority businesses to work in them, to work with those agencies. His quote was "time's up," which is problematic to me. They ruled it an unconstitutional thing to be able to exclude those white businesses from working with those agencies. And
tell us a little bit about that ruling.
The ruling. So there was an all-white plaintiff that had that said that it was a discriminatory practice for them to exclude white businesses from being able to participate in programs and to be supported by the minority business development agencies, as well as the minority business development centers. Now, those are important, and those are federal programs that are around the entire country. We recently just got one here in Oregon. Like just over a year ago, I think they had their grand opening. And now with that ruling, it creates a precedent. There's an opportunity for, this is Oregon, so it's already started. The people have been frothing at the mouth to tear apart race-based programming. The moment that affirmative action was no longer a thing, they've just been ready to go.
We saw examples of that when we were distributing that money for Care Oregon. So
we've been trying to navigate that landscape ourselves. I saw this coming from a mile away.
Wow.
I heard rumblings about these sorts of things going on the DC side. The connections that I have in DC, they've been telling me, it's like, well, we've been trying to change the way we do things so that we didn't have to worry about it. Doing things like getting rid of those check boxes that you have. So to determine if you have a disparity, get rid of the checkbox that says Black, therefore you have a disparity. Now you have to write it in. Here's a box, write in what your disparity is, which makes sense. It allows them to open to, like, you can say, I've experienced discrimination based on race, and that has closed off certain doors to me. That works perfectly. Now, if you say Black, that doesn't mean disparity anymore. Because affirmative action is gone. No.
So what's driving? What do you think is the undercurrent of driving this stuff? Is it the same old Jim Crow, white supremacy realities, or is it just, I mean, Roe versus Wade and all that on the female side, man, around the right, for abortions, all that kind of stuff, But the other side of this is when you start looking at affirmative action and how it begins to address any of the plight and the growth of the black community. Is that intentional, you think? Is there a system, or are we looking at some conspiracy theory, or what do you think the origin of something like this is coming from? Or that it matters? I mean, looking in the land of milk and honey where we've lived and grew up, we already know where the boogeyman is. Yeah. But what do you thought?
It's interesting. I think it comes from, I think a lot of it stems from misinformation. And a lack of understanding of where disparities are, like who is taking what from where. They look at certain individuals. They'll look at what's sexy in politics, what's sexy in the world, what seems like the thing that'll spark enough movement. And then they'll just run with it, or they'll campaign on it, and then that'll be the thing. Affirmative action was specifically, the idea was to
Sort of level the playing field.
It leveled the playing field,
but it was supposed to level the playing field, but it ain't did that.
It didn't. And the interesting thing about affirmative action, the case that did it was Harvard. Right. It was that Harvard
Asian
case.
boy challenge.
Yes. Now that is because, like, let's be honest here. A lot of those schools, they would not be. It's not advantageous to the white population to remove affirmative action to get into certain institutions.
Right.
Like your Yales, your Harvards, your Columbias, your Princeton, so on and so on. It's not advantageous to them, but they thought it was. And I think they're going to reap what they sow as time goes on. So like you said, there's a boogeyman. They don't know who their boogeyman is.
Yeah. Well, they think it's us.
Yeah, they need to, like, a lot of these politicians, a lot of those who are trying to move that needle, it seems like a fundamental lack of understanding that things are case by case. Like, maybe you're not doing good in this particular area here, education. You're not doing how you think you should be, but it's not my fault. Like, it's not our fault. Like, don't blame us. There's a program that was helping you get into school. Like, you were getting into Harvard. You were benefiting from affirmative action in that case too. Yeah. Maybe we were benefiting in other institutions, but like those big higher learning, like, you were just a recipient as we were. But now you're gonna tear that apart. That's is what it is.
So how do you think that ruling last night will affect organizations like your own, like Chambers?
For us, I've been waiting for this. I don't foresee it impacting us directly outside, other than funding sources. Maybe it'll change reporting. Maybe it'll change certain things. But us directly, I've been looking for this. I've changed the way that I've been wording certain things. I've been excluding race for things. I've been using other ways to target our people. Reaching out to, like, Blossom Media in order to get things out. I know how to market, know where to market, change zip codes,
navigate,
So we like scoring systems, like the way that we score the way we score for those grants, instead of doing it since we can't do it based on race, so we can prioritize certain populations. Use zip codes. Now we know what the demographics of the zip codes are. We know where certain people are, so we'll wait on the zip code. Why not?
So how do you think it would affect our organizations like Black Business Association? That's criteria specifically talking about black businesses or black. How does an organization like that navigate around something like this?
I would like to see how they play into that political landscape.
Interesting.
That's because they've been maneuvering and moving. They have a lot of political pull. They know the politicians that they need to. They've been well connected. So it'll be interesting to see how they maneuver around it. For us, kind of the different lanes that we occupy between the two of us. Our priority is our community. Our priority is also our community without taking anything off the plates of others. Because that's where you start running into problems. We should all be working together to get more for all of us. That's why the CEC exists as a coalition of economic chambers. That's why we work with Native chambers, the Philippine American chambers. Why we work with the Korean American chambers, with the Hispanic metropolitan chambers. There's resources out there for all of us. And we don't have to take away from other people in order to do that. Now, whether or not some people agree with that, that's on them. But for us, we're do everything that we can to make sure that we don't take off of someone else's plate, because that's when they want to take off of our plate, and that's where problems come.
So let's look at the landscape, okay, since COVID, what was your sense of, what was the impact did you see COVID having an impact on small black businesses in the state of Oregon when COVID hit?
Yeah.
Then moving forward from there, what do you see was the impact of COVID?
During COVID, I would say COVID had two waves. COVID came in and did what it did. Everything shut down. Businesses were hurting during that time. So now COVID, I think, had less of an impact than the things that happened during COVID. During COVID, we had George Floyd. Which honestly, I would not be in this seat, or I would not be in the position that I'm in right now if it weren't for George Floyd.
Yeah.
As unfortunate an event that was, that I think that activated us all. It really put a spotlight on black businesses. COVID hurt. COVID hit. COVID started closing down a lot of businesses. A lot of businesses hurt during COVID. And a lot of businesses didn't really understand how to pivot during COVID. Didn't have the funds to pivot appropriately during COVID, to switch that digital landscape, to start focusing more on the internet and how can we deliver through e-commerce rather than hoping and praying someone's going to walk through our door.
Right.
But when George Floyd happened, which tragedy though, the tragedy as it is it's horrible as it was. I think that put a spotlight on black businesses and the need to empower and uplift the black community economically.
I mean, particularly because most black businesses in Portland are a lot of them are in retail, service industry, the barbers and all that stuff, man. And that was directly what got hit the most,
Yeah.
So.
Yep. And like the toughest part with that is like when you have like barbers, there are some that found a way to maneuver around, to maneuver in that landscape. Mobile barber shops started popping up. When you had those restaurants, like Grubhub and Uber Eats were kind of a godsend for them. A little less so now. But they were a godsend for them then, and that was a real game changer, and that kept those restaurants alive. The things that I started seeing I had a lot of hope during COVID because of the way that a lot of businesses started behaving during that time. It showed to me there was a level of unity that came out of that time that I just never saw before then. You look at the business landscape.
I was in banking at that time, particularly on the small business bank side. I mean, there was still some good stuff that came out of it. Is like, I think there was always going to be this natural progression for people kind of transitioning to more like e-commerce and things like that. Then as soon as COVID hit, I think people had to pivot overnight for that, like overnight they became experts on, doing retail online and stuff like that. And now when you walk around, a good portion of their sales and their revenue is coming from online, and they become like masters at that, so. Yeah,
you had to. It's we've been referring to it as the new normal. We've been, like during COVID, everybody was talking about, I can't wait for things to go back to normal. Things will go back to the way that they were.
What's the likelihood of that, though? You think it ever get back to like how it was?
It'll get back to normal, but we're in that normal now.
Yeah.
Is that what this normal looks like?
This is the new normal.
So I guess we can go back to the original question: is what is your perception of the landscape of black businesses in the state of Oregon?
In the state of dipped and dodged.
I know it's a big one, but
it's in Oregon right now. The landscape, I see it as I'm hopeful, but there's so many issues and barriers in the way right now for true success. And there's not enough entrepreneurship. There's nowhere near enough entrepreneurship. Like COVID was great for pushing businesses, pushing individuals to start moving and starting their own business and do their own thing. But there's not enough. There's just not enough of us at all. And many of us are leaving. You hear it all the time that there are resources there, but those resources are getting less and less now. As they poured a bunch of money and a bunch of opportunities our way during COVID, and now you're seeing those numbers go down. And as you see those numbers go down, you also see those businesses, the number of businesses go down. And when you see the number of businesses go down, you also see people leaving the state. And it's like they pursue opportunity.
And we already have a small population as it is.
Yeah.
You know, and like of that population, how many of them are business owners or, you know, old enough to be business owners? So
or have the means or the resources that the connections that it takes to own and operate a business. You just don't really see it.
You know, man, I'm really struggling with a couple of questions that are redundant in my mind constantly as someone that's been in this sector for as long as I have been, is that we all were motivated to achieve the American dream. And our perception of what the American dream was, right? Business ownerships. And the question still remained was the idea of freedom in this country was the backbone of this country was small businesses. I guess the question that I constantly keep arriving to, has the American dream changed?
Oh, yeah. I don't believe in that old traditional American dream. I haven't.
Small businesses are the backbone of this country?
Well, small businesses are the backbone of our country.
Absolutely.
Straight up.
But is that the American dream or the perception of the American dream?
I don't think that's the American dream anymore, though. I think that that's absolutely a fact and true, that small businesses are the backbone. Main Street is probably the most important thing to this country. But there's certain corporate interests and certain, like, the landscape itself has changed so much that it's those small businesses are important and they are the backbone of this country. A lot of them are reliant on a lot of those larger corporations now. Like when you see sales of like retail sales and your general, or what was traditionally a Main Street store, a lot of them are selling their products on Amazon now, in the Amazon Marketplace or Walmart Marketplace. That's what you see now. You don't see like you can't just walk to the corner store on Main Street anymore, and the hardware store on Main Street. Like those aren't. It's hard to compete when Home Depot and Lowe's are in every town. Yeah, like you can't. You're not going to beat Walmart's pricing. And a lot of us say that we want to support small business and we want to make sure that we talk with our dollar. But when you got like, when you only got $2, Walmart's looking pretty good at that point, right? Because the prices, it's just, you can't beat that pricing that they have. You're not going to be able to make any profit margins off of that.
Shopping at mom and pops is a luxury.
Exactly.
It's a luxury now.
Exactly. Which is a shame. Which is really, really a shame, honestly. I wish it weren't that way. So we have to find other ways to differentiate ourselves, to differentiate our products, which the Black community is in probably the most optimistic and powerful position to do so, because like we've always been the most innovative in, like, when it comes to being able to integrate our culture into our products. We're phenomenal at that. That's just a strength that we have.
But are we literally making a you hear all these different kinds of things on Facebook but anyway, nobody don't take none of that stuff too literal. But at the same time, when we talk about the fact that we're living in the most opportune time in the history of the Black man in this country, but at the same time, it always seems as if anything or any vehicle or any avenue, and I don't like this victim posture, because I'm not. That's not who I am. But any avenue that would result in the advancement and success of African Americans in this country seems to always bestowed or plagued with some kind of shackle on it, and when that pathway has been identified, it's almost like a chess game constantly. Every time this pathway is identified, there's a piece moved in place to not allow it to be too successful. But they say that there's a whole lot of exciting Black millionaires and wealthy people in this country doing business. I see, other than the ones that they show us, which and there probably is a lot of covert ones also. But what do you think is some of the key elements that is needed to survive in the marketplace today as a Black business or a small minority business or a BIPOC business? What do you think are some of the key skills or links or assets that one would have to be to survive in this marketplace?
Something that I advocate for wholeheartedly, constantly, and like very just with all my heart, collaboration over competition. We work too hard to try, and we're very competitive. We're often way too competitive, and we don't cooperate and collaborate with one another. When you see those businesses, those millionaires, those really successful ones, it's because they formed so many different relationships, so many strong, potent relationships that are real. And then we look at a lot of our small businesses, and they're viewing everyone as competition. That's often what will hurt a business. Is like, of course you want to compete in the marketplace 100%, but you don't want to drive your competition out of business, of course. Like, that is something that is not spoken about enough. That we want our competition to be there. We want to see our neighbors thrive. If our neighbors thrive, we thrive. It's competition makes us better, always. It's just the way that it is. And a lot of the time we are so fixed on, we got to defeat them. We have to defeat our neighbor. We got to make sure that we're the guy we're standing on the top of the hill.
Right. It's capitalism, though, isn't it? The very notion of the infrastructure.
That is the way that it is. But
one-upmanship. It's good. We can get to the top of the hill first,
But there's room. The hill's not a point. The hill's pretty flat. We can all stand there.
Well, so they say. I've been climbing. I'm still the real estate that I'm standing on seems to be fragile and timid, but I'm trying to get to some solid ground. I don't know what that look like, though.
It's one of those things. If you turn around, you give a hand up to help pull your neighbor up, then maybe, you never know, he might get past you. And when he does, he'll remember that you turned around and pulled him up, and hopefully he'll turn around and pull you up. You don't want to grab him by the ankle and yank him down. So you want to try and make some friends. Like all those people, every time when you're a restaurant, if you own a restaurant, for God's sake, just like your neighbor, something happened in their restaurant. Maybe they don't have a kitchen. You got off hours, let them use your kitchen every now and then. Maybe do some catering or something.
So what's your thoughts, man, about all this money floating around? Okay, in terms of its destination and the focus of these federal dollars and where it's going in relationship to what we believe is why the small business, in relationship to small business, right, or to business itself in general, as a specific strategic agenda to enhance, to develop, or whatever, in relationship to housing and all these other dollars, these federal dollars going into community development and all this kind of stuff. What are your thoughts about the priority of these kinds of deliverables these days? I mean, are they within? Well, just tell me what your thoughts are about all that.
I'll put two parts on that. First, not an answer to the question, but I will just say, do your taxes. If you're getting that money, do your taxes and do your taxes right, because they IRS don't play.
Oh yeah, and that was actually the thought that I was having. Of course, I was going to ask you before. What do you think about during the time of COVID? Right, that about the hits that a lot of these small black businesses were taking. That the government seemed to be intentional about letting us know that there was some misappropriations or inappropriate behaviors in relationship to reporting and all that kind of stuff. What are your thoughts about that?
That actually ties into that. The answer to that also ties into that previous question too. So now, one of the things that's missing when it comes to those funds that are going to businesses is the knowledge of how to, what to, and when to with all of those funds. So when you get those funds and you say it's for X, how do you execute that and make sure that you are doing exactly X? You're not using those funds on anything else. This is what you said you're using that money for. Use it on that, straight up. Don't play games with the government. The government always wins. And when you how do you execute that? Like, how do you plan? How do you budget that appropriately? And how do you execute on the plan that you proposed? And making sure that you have everything that you need. So the component that was missing to that, they were in such a rush to get those funds out, and they are in such a rush. Like now, they still haven't really filled in a lot of those little gaps, the technical assistance that comes with that, they're not really putting as much into the technical assistance side of things to make sure that those funds are being used appropriately, and that someone is there to tell them, okay, you've got grant funding. This is going to be handled differently on your taxes than normal revenue is.
Yeah.
So you need to connect with like your accountant. You need to make sure that this is documented as it should. That you have all the paperwork.
Because people are under the impression sometimes with grants you don't have to report that. So
yeah, that's what people. It's
Yeah,
money's
that's the
coming in.
impression.
Yeah, money's coming in. They want to know about it, and you that needs to be handled. And I will say grants too. COVID was unique in this, but another thing that I say often is grants are found money. Always look at it as found money.
Yeah.
There's too many businesses that are reliant on grants. Like,
Right.
is
That's
that
the nonprofit world.
Yeah.
Chasing them dollars. You become more of a financial person than more than a director or,
Oh yeah, that's a lot of my day is chasing down funds. As a nonprofit, yeah, as a nonprofit, that's just what it is. But if you're a for-profit business and you are reliant on grants,
that's not the model.
You will not survive. I promise you.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. But man, we've been floating around in the muck and mire of this, and just agitating and emoting. But let's look at what the future. What does the future hold for us, man? I mean, in your perception of growing this sector. I mean, because it seems to me that this sector is taking a serious hit, even though that it may be that monies are flowing in a certain sector when it comes to the black experience in our communities. The question that I'm still having is at what point, what's the future look like for the backbone that we keep talking about of this small business reality? I mean, or is everybody going to work for somebody?
No, now I'm optimistic about it because A, I have to be, and B, I want to be. Now, I see the future of black business being we're gonna catch up to where we need to be. Now, and that is part of what my job is, to make sure that we have those barriers removed, and that we also offer the assistance that's necessary for businesses to pivot and to grow appropriately. Now, we've been resistant, and a lot of our entrepreneurs are not a lot of kids are pursuing entrepreneurship, partly because it's not really taught as an option to a lot of black kids that entrepreneurship is something that they can pursue. It's looked at, go to school, get a job. Okay.
But see, that's something we got to start reconsidering, because this whole AI stuff coming up, it's going to be the stuff you're learning in school today. You might not have a job for that in 10 years.
Yeah, and I think that's what I was listening to Dr. Phil do an interview. Not his show, but he was doing an interview on somebody else's show. And he was talking about how a large swath of young people are no longer looking at college careers as a professional, a field of professional, rather doctor, lawyer, or whatever. And which was ironic, interesting to me, was that he said that they were shifting to becoming online political figures, or online. They're using the online platform as a form of work, or a form of form of investment. Yeah, influencers. That's the word I was looking for. But he said that it was rather ironic that in that career of endeavor, so many people are not successful in it, and the fact that the career path only allows you and affords you about 8 years of investment in that reality.
Yeah.
That there's a limitation. So what's the thought behind all that? Is it just instant gratification, or what does that look like?
I think it's everybody wants to be a little bit famous every now and then. Now, I will say, anyone who's listening or watching, I want you to know that AI should not be scary. I've always been an advocate for AI. Now, there are two schools of thought. One, AI is going to take all of our jobs. And the other one is, no, AI is the greatest thing ever. Now, the answer is always somewhere in the middle. And I promise you, if AI is not going anywhere, and your options are to embrace it, learn everything there is about it, and keep up with it, and let it help you grow. I look at it more. AI is a lot dumber than a lot of people think it is. It is like it still can't do word problems. Like, let's be honest, it can't do third grade word problems. So it can't grasp what a hand looks like yet. Now I look at it as the same way as a calculator. When the calculator first came out, everybody thought that people were going to be dumb. Like, they can't do math anymore. The calculator's doing all the work for them. Now, since then, math has gotten far more complicated in schools than it used to be. Like, now that we have AI that can take a lot of those mundane little things out of the equation, we can focus on a lot more complicated things. We can like those lessons, those things that they need to do, they just got a lot harder than they used to be. Now you've just like AI is just going to jet you forward, and things that we look at as like, that's not something I can touch. I there's no way that I can even fathom that idea. That is what AI is going to open that door, and that's just the way that it's going to be. The future is.
At the same time, like, there was always this perception that going to college is the ultimate path to success, and I think sometimes it took people away from some passions that they might have had, right? So you see a lot of people now advocating to go to like trade schools and things like that. Those are the things that are going to be available in the future all the time, because AI is not going to be able to go behind the walls and put some plumbing in and stuff like that, right? But I mean, I was passionate about like woodworking and stuff like that when I was in middle school, right? But I was under the impression I had to go to college to be successul and not do the woodworking thing. But now there's a reverse in that thinking, So
and it's one of those. Imagine like plumbing. You're a plumber. You lay some pipes, and now you lay some pipes behind the wall. Now imagine if instead of you having to do like so much manual work and things, you incorporate AI. You take a device, something that can now just project the entire pathway that you need to of all the pipes. Now your work just got way more precise. You are at an advantage above advantage. You are the plumber of plumbers. And you're right. Trade schools they should be elevated a lot more than they are. People should be pursuing a lot more trades. An elevator technician makes a lot more money than elevator technicians make a lot of money, and they're those jobs
they got a lot of liability too.
They do. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's but those jobs aren't talked about enough. Those trades aren't. And also I think I had kind of like danced past your previous question as well.
Well, you keep on dancing. It's a good old thing. You can dance for a little while, but we'll nail you down sooner or later.
Got around your previous question there. But it's so I'm trying to remember. What was it again? Before I went on my AI tangent.
Well, we can keep on moving past that AI, discussing that, unpacking that just a little bit more. I mean, I think it was more about the future outlook, in terms of how you perceive where we're going and the things that are happening right about now. What's the sense? Where's the light for hope and inspiration? And I think that it's important for us to be able to continue that, because the outlook as it looks right now, it looks kind of bleak, man. I mean, when we look at it, the struggle to gain awareness or political attention to the issue around the business decline, and the sense of sort of looking at how do we begin to navigate the landscape of this whole issue around BIPOC business and the concerns, and rather not those federal concerns become that the small business becomes more of an attention of the feds versus the issue around housing, the issue around drugs, the issue around mental health, which are all things that I think are important to discuss and that are important to have attention to. But it just seems to me, when we pull away from the foundation pieces that really keep the mechanism moving, when we neglect that, we tend to build other things. If we neglect the foundation, then we're still making more dependency. And my thought would be that this model of small business would be more of an independent model. It creates taxpayers, the next iteration of people buying homes. It makes contribution to the economy. It keeps it moving. So when we start stopping that and start looking at, well, how we address a fentanyl problem, how we address a housing problem, and we take all the resources and shift them over to that reality, and then we neglect this part. It's almost like we're making more homelessness.
Yeah.
So it just gets to be an issue.
I will say too, this is a whole nother conversation, especially when it comes to like a lot of the drug problems and things like that. That is a whole nother conversation that I will say that is the funding that's been shifted into a lot of those programs is an admittance in the failure of the correction system. Now, I've never been one to raise up the correct. It's basically you've admitted that your correction system doesn't correct anymore, and it's just holding.
Well, but no, it was a bad deal to push everything into that system, man. I mean, because at what point in time, the only way that our kids could literally get the treatment or get the services that they need, from the social services or human, was that they needed to be locked up to be able to get them, which this state was doing for a number of years, long before the thought was, well, maybe we ought to reinvent this wheel here because this one ain't working. You got to go to jail to get help.
Yeah.
I mean, and then when you come out, you're a criminal, then you're still behind the 8 ball. You're still needing to figure out a way. And to believe it or not, the only pathway, one of the options for the felon on the pathway is to begin to reinvest in himself in small business.
Yeah.
Some sense of independence. So we see that intersection constantly,
Always. Yep.
And that the profile of how we're beginning to see what comes to the table is who needs to be sitting at the table when the client comes. I mean, because we got corrections that comes into the door. We got social service that comes into the door. We got child support issues that come into the door. You name it, man. But yet these people only see the only other element that they have. They can't be hired, right, because they got a felony or this and that. So the only avenue they have is the freedom that the United States provides is anybody can establish their own entity to do business in America.
And then they still put more barriers in front of you to do that just because you have something on your record. There's a lot of it's hard to get investment a lot of the time when you've got a felony on your record. Yeah. You may not have to disclose it all the time, but it's not that hard to find out. And I've seen it before of businesses that just some things that popped up in their past, all of a sudden door shut. It's like don't call here again. It's like there's so many problems within that system that prevents a lot of us from becoming entrepreneurs and being able to elevate those businesses. Like I said, that's another conversation. That's about 5 hours worth of
There's
talk,
one that I think has been really interesting that been waiting to ask you. This whole word called intersectionality. Okay, lately, how does the issue of intersectionality, such as gender, LGBTQ plus identity, the disabilities, interest, what's the experience like of black entrepreneurs in Oregon when it comes to these types of situations? What you've been hearing about this kind of
All right, yeah, that's one that we've been working very hard to address, because there's, I love our people to death.
Yeah,
but to death. But there are marginalized communities within our marginalized community that we overlook often. There is significant investment going into certain communities that may not be going into ours, and then the problems are there's not a lot of support for certain communities that are intersectional. You see a lot of businesses that within the LGBT community, it's difficult for them to integrate within a lot of areas within the black community. If you're black and LGBT, they're often looked at differently and they don't feel like they belong. And then within the LGBT community, they try to find something there, and because they're black, they don't necessarily fit in. So there's not a space with that intersectionality for them to feel safe, wanted, or supported. And that has been something that's
I've seen minority within a minority group.
Exactly. There's a story, honestly. There was a business owner that reached out to us, reached out to me when I had like first started with the BACC, when I was acting as a business coach. As a business owner came out, he called me, and he, like, normal appointment sort of thing, like, cool, well, looking forward to meeting you. We'll talk. We'll set up that first appointment. Great. Off to the races. Everything's fine. Then he called me back. He said, I just want to let you know I am a gay man. Like, I'm gay. It's like, okay, what the hell are you calling me for? Like, what are you telling me? Like, what's that have to do with anything? I was like, well, I had been trying to work with another organization, and that was problematic for them. They had, they ghosted me. They stopped calling me back. It's like, okay, that's a problem. I understand now. I get what you mean. Like, that's a problem. That's something that needs to be addressed. That is not something that we would ever allow. I don't care what any of those things are, anything else. You're a black business, and you need to be supported. Straight up, the end. I don't care about anything else. And the fact that there is that level of discrimination even within our community is something that needs to be addressed, honestly.
Wow. You any thoughts, Alex?
Yeah, man. I mean, we haven't come across anything like that, but that's tough, man.
Yeah, it was tough to hear. Honestly, it was a conversation that, like, I didn't want to have. It's not something that I had thought of. Honestly, it's not something I thought about. Like, but it makes sense. Like, the more that I heard, like, I just hear those stories. Like, we work with, we've been kind of working with ORPIB. We've been connecting with them, and as well as Pride Northwest. We've been working with different organizations that cater to different communities. We've been trying to open all those doors possible. And as we have those conversations, it's like the stories that we hear, it's like, those aren't the people that I know. That's not the community that I'm aware of. We're an empathetic community. We just by nature, we're empathetic. Right. But then you hear, like, stories of, like, well, no, we can't support them because they're not part of our community. They got other resources. Like, no, they're our people. They are our people. If they have other resources, cool, good for those other resources. But we have something, and they are our people. We should support them, straight up, just flat out.
Yeah, I would agree. And so when you look at the impact grant, is this quite a good pocket of money?
Yeah.
A little bucket.
Not enough, but yeah.
Yeah, but you plan to measure the impact of that? What's your approach to measuring impact with that?
So,
with that, expenditure.
We have a level of follow up that we're associating with it. We want to make sure that all the funding is going exactly where it needs to, because I want this to not be a one-time thing. I want to do it again. I want to be able to do it again next year, and I want to be able to do it again with private investment instead of public investment, instead of working through the state, for reasons that we had previously spoken of, the affirmative action reasons, like, because you can't say black is the reason we're giving the funds away according to affirmative action. But if I get private investment, I can do whatever I want. I can say this money is just for black. I can say this money is just for Hispanic. I can work with those organizations and make the direct, exact impact that I want with private investment. Private investment is money. Whatever I want to do with it, I can do it.
Right on.
So how did you guys come up to team up with the Filipino community to put that together?
So we are we're part of a larger entity, not part of a larger entity. We're part of a group of chambers called the CEC, the Coalition of Economic Chambers. That is us, the Philippine American Chamber, the Hispanic Metropolitan Chamber, and the Northwest Native American Chamber. As part of that group, PACO, the Philippine Chamber, they have been just phenomenal for us. They've done there's so many organizations that we have to thank for our existence and for our growth trajectory, and PACO was one of them. So as we approached different organizations to partner with on this, because we wanted this this tranche of funds, we're stronger together. That's just the way that it is. We're always stronger together. So for us to be able to make an impact on the Black community, I wanted to make sure that this funding was going towards the communities that really needed it. And though we were instrumental in getting it, I felt we can get a larger tranche of funds if we targeted the minority community as a whole.
Yeah.
So that is what we did, and we partnered with Paco, who was they were the ones that had some time on their hand within the CEC. They were the ones that had the capacity at the time.
Yeah.
It was Northwest. They're expanding. They're huge now. They're in the middle of expansion. They have everything in the world on their table.
Yeah.
Hispanic Chamber, same thing. They're both of them phenomenal partners. Oh my God, I can't speak highly enough of them. They've done so much for us.
It's a BIPOC community.
Yeah.
That has really come to the aid and support of the chamber.
Yep.
From the Black Chamber.
Yep.
And moving forward, do you see a need to have a Black collaborative effort around small businesses?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah.
I mean, what would something like that look like in your mind? The convening of something like that.
I look at it as I want to see the Justice League of Black businesses,
right.
Black community. Like I want to see
the main
that.
players, right?
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
No, I'm with you.
Yeah, I want to see
Underneath.
Superman, Batman. I want to see the Superman of the Black business community, the Batman of the Black business community. I want, all of it.
No, but and do you see that effort coming to some type of opportunity at some point in time here, or what? Or
I've been seeing kind of rumblings of it, but it's similar to what I was telling some other organizations. Everybody wants to be the tip of the spear. No one wants to be the shaft or the tail.
Exactly.
So it's ego needs to be put aside for that.
Yeah.
Which is it's an initiative that I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
I want to see that happen. I very much want to see that happen. And like Soul District wants to be a part of them.
Oh yeah, man.
Make this move.
The idea is right at this point in time, man. If we don't collectively come together, I think that there's going to be a lot of carnage. Transition is difficult for everybody, and we get all that, and we see all the agitation, moving parts, the landscape shifting, all that kind of stuff, and of course, when landscape or land shifts, something falls through the cracks, and we're going to lose. We're going to have an attrition. We're going to have a result of mismanagement, not seeing certain things, all this. But I would be remiss to say and to not be bringing to light is the fact that I think that the application of the dollars are, for me, foundationally being appropriated in the wrong way. Okay? I think that we should always build the foundation. I mean, you can build a whole lot of houses, right? We are 67,000 units short of the housing need in our state, right? So we invest all this money into these developments. Now, these things take time to come online. Now, so when you think about a 5-year vision, if we invest solely in social services and housing, so then what is the underlying sustainability? I mean, with that plan, because who's working? Maybe they go to a job, they got an apartment, but surely they're strapped.
Yeah, that's not economic empowerment.
It's not, and not even advancement. You can't move it on up. There ain't no more Jeffersons no more.
Yeah.
I mean, it's come on and go to work, Negro.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, and most of us will try to figure out some other way of doing that. But either way we figure out doing it, it's still business.
Yeah.
And we need to get our heads wrapped around the significance of investing in that part for an upward growth. And so I think that's one of my pet peeves about now.
Honestly, giving someone here's some place to live, here's we'll cover some of your, that's not economic empowerment.
It's not.
No.
It's dependency.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Economic empowerment should be the goal. Economic mobility should be the goal, so that we can move up. If you're stuck in the moment that you're stuck, you're stuck. And it's hard to get unstuck when you're stuck. So, and don't get me wrong, entrepreneurship is not for everybody. It's just not. And I wish it was, but entrepreneurship, it really isn't for everybody. Some people are genuinely content with
Working for somebody, yeah.
working for somebody,
Yeah.
working a 9 to 5,
Yeah.
and there's nothing wrong with that at all.
No, it's not.
But for entrepreneurship to not be presented as an option, that is problematic.
Yeah.
So, and that is what disables that economic mobility, is that people don't know that they have that option, and they don't know how, when, where, what do I do?
Yeah.
Some people have an idea, and it's like, I don't know what to do from here. Like, it's like, I want to be able to start a business. I was like, how do I do it? And then it's like, honestly, this was a discussion I had as well. Our marketing budget doesn't exist. Like, because a lot of organizations like ours, we don't have marketing budgets. All our money is going towards trying to support community and keep our doors open.
Yeah.
Now, if we had a marketing budget, then it's easy to then to show that option is there, what we do, what our services are, that we're willing to help idea phase businesses flesh it out into a real thing. As I've been saying, is like, turn your idea into a real boy.
Yeah.
Turn that little puppet into a real boy.
That's right. And don't be so attached to it.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, let it run in the backyard for a little while.
Yeah, exactly.
Turn it loose. Turn it loose.
Yeah.
You know, Lemelle, I'll tell you, Evan, this has been a conversation that's really been long overdue. And you know, man, and I still am a firm believer that, you know, if a man doesn't have a way to be independent, he's really not a man in America. And I think the very ideal of our ability to be prosperous, independent, these types of things are sometimes rooted in our ability to navigate some of these complicated systems, right? And today, you know, man, looking at small business in the sector in which we're looking at it is, I do believe that there's a real need for a collaborative effort, number one, and not that independent fragmentation that we tend to have here in Oregon. And I also am really invested in the notion that not all money is good money, but I believe that the money that we invest should have what we call a two-part, a noun and a future. And it is the noun for small businesses, not the future, meaning that if we continue to neglect the investment that's needed to stabilize that, I believe that we're going to create more homelessness than we are looking to create more taxpayers and people looking to have some sense of generated wealth and achievement in this country. So
and economic stagnation.
And you can, yes. So Evan, I really do appreciate you coming on the show.
Of course.
You know, but you know, here at Black Beat, our objective is to reveal the truth, man, and to give people information to be successful. It doesn't have to be ours. We want to talk to people who got the notion, got the vision, got the plan, and we want to share that with our listeners. So listeners out there, please come and check us out on Black Beat Podcast, the platforms, all the local platforms, all the places y'all know where to look for podcasts. Flossin Media is another one of those places where we aim to bring to light formulas for successful living, not ours, the ones that are out there. So again, Evan, I appreciate you coming on the show today, man, and chopping it up with you, man, anytime you need to. And Alex, I appreciate you sitting in on this conversation and this dialogue. And hey, folks, check us out. You hear? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.